Yes, good evening. This is Wallace Gator Bradley, and I'm the president of United in Peace, Inc. I'm also the host of this show, The Bradley Report. But I want everyone to know that this show is possible because of the chairman of United in Peace, Inc., who is also the director. She's also the producer. She helped me find the guests for the show, as well as be my soundboard when I come with the issues, and she give me some issues to bring to my viewing and listening audience. None other than Terry Marsh, and I'm blessed by God to be her husband. With that, I want to say to God be the glory. Let's get into it. It's going to be a very interesting evening. A lot of things has happened. But first off, let me say happy birthday to Congressman Danny K. Davis, an icon, a legend, and a friend of mine. And my Lou Rawls voice, one day you gonna get old. To follow such a man, to be allowed to follow such a mentor as Congressman Danny Davis, he helped me to get my pardon. He and a host of others. He have given me a wealth of knowledge. He made it where it was easy for me to understand the importance of what Larry used to always say. Sometimes, Gator, we got to look, listen, and learn. And with that, I want to say, Congressman, congratulations on being blessed by God to have a birthday and walk around and be ready to dance at it. So let me tell y'all, he's having a birthday celebration from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, September the 8th. Okay? And the most important thing is free. It's at 2318 West 5th Avenue on the west side. Do y'all remember the case where Daley's nephew pleaded guilty after a special prosecutor was brought into the case by Mr. Dan Webb? Remember Mr. Dan Webb? And it was Judge Tunin, remember Judge Tunin's name, that made him the special prosecutor in this case where Daley's nephew pled guilty for killing or being responsible for the death of this young man by the name of Koshman. I have made reference to this case, I believe my last 2 or 3 shows, because of all the hoopla of everyone who wants to get rid of Kim Foxx, especially the Fraternal Order Police. I don't believe all the police officers have the same attitude as their spokesman or their president of the Fraternal Order Police, who believe that Van Dyke did no wrong. They believe no police engaged in misconduct, even if they went to the penitentiary, did no wrong. Who believe that even though police officers were with John Burge and they tortured over 120 some African American men and Hispanic men, they feel like they did no wrong. And this case with David Koshman, Koschman case, the police officer that I showed you, his name is Sam Cerrone. And you have the police, turn on the police, their lawyer. They say this man, Daley's nephew, should never have been charged. This guy here, he's the last cop facing discipline in a case, and 3 ex-colleagues say former mayor's relative acted in self-defense. Talking about Daley's nephew, Richard J. R.J. Vineco. Now the last cop still facing disciplinary action in a high-profile case is arguing he shouldn't be punished and that Daley's nephew never should have been charged by a special prosecutor, which is Dan Webb. But even though all those police officers, from what I read in Dan Webb's report, did a lot of wrong, covering up the cases, not following through, violating a lot of rules and regulations, he found no reason to charge them in a conspiracy to cover up a crime that was done by Mayor Daley's nephew, who ended up getting 60 days. Not in the county jail, not in the state penitentiary, in another county. And I read somewhere where he allegedly paid for his own stay so that Cook County wouldn't have to pay that bill for a resident that's being housed in another county jail. And he got 60 days home confinement. 60 days for being responsible for a death of a young man that wasn't African American on Rush Street, not on State Street, not on Cottage Grove. He wasn't African American, he was white. I'm saying all that because there's a move to get rid of Kim Foxx by the Fraternal Order of Police and white racists, white supremacists. They protest April the 1st. It was not a joke. I was out there, I witnessed it, I saw it. Protesting Kim Foxx because she was bringing justice through criminal reform, justice reform, against police officers that engaged in misconduct in order for these individuals to be prosecuted when it was framed by the police. A lot of it was framed by the police officer. From what I'm reading, the police officers that did it ended up going to the penitentiary. From what I'm reading and from what everyone knows. And that was one of the reasons that Kim Foxx ran for state's attorney. I know because at the time I was helping Donna Moore run for state's attorney. And the platform and the agenda for everyone that's running for state's attorney was to help eradicate the wrongs that was done to those who were wrongfully convicted. Now I hear Donna Moore want to run again. And she say because Kim Foxx isn't doing anything. Evidently, Donna Moore, I know her. Maybe she don't read, or maybe she don't like what she read. To have her to say that Kim Foxx is not doing anything Kim Foxx has brought a lot of integrity to the state's attorney's office since she has been elected. Take my word for it. Google it. They use this case about Smollett. That's a smokescreen. It's really a white supremacist move being led by the Fraternal Order of Police and their white supremacist supporters. Don't take Gator's word for it. Just Google the story of the Fraternal Order of Police protesting out there in front of the state's attorney's office. Just read about the letter that the Fraternal Order of Police sent. Public document saying they don't want Kim Foxx to be there because she's free individuals because of police misconduct. So now everyone coming out the woodwork. None of them says they're not for what the Fraternal Order of Police are saying. As a matter of fact, they agree with what they said about Kim Foxx. They agree to the things and the protests that they're doing against Kim Foxx. They agree to the support of the white supremacist organizations going at Kim Foxx because she's doing the right thing. So Cook County voters, you made the choice then not to elect Donna Moore, not to elect Nita Alvarez. You elected Kim Foxx. And because you made that decision, integrity has been brought to the state's attorney's office. Back to the story at hand. I'm going to move on. What they did in this case before I move, Dan Webb is the special prosecutor that was appointed by Judge Toomey, to be a special prosecutor in the Smollett case to see what wrong did the state's attorney's office do to let this guy Smollett go. Even though the judge's order says that Kim Foxx had no conflict, nothing to do with it. It's a part of the plot. It's my opinion. Everybody's entitled to theirs. This is my opinion from what I'm reading and from what I'm witnessing. And from what you're reading and from what you're witnessing. And you can Google it. These officers covered up the murder of Cosman, that his nephew punched him. It's a story from Tim Novak. And if you Google about this case, we cannot let the state's attorney's office go back to what it used to be. We see that this one guy that wants to run for the state's attorney's office, his father is a multi-billionaire, gave him $500,000. So that makes him, what everyone calls those people with that much money, 1%ers. The privileged few. You don't want him to be the state's attorney neither. These police officers, they did the cover up because they were protecting the privileged. And now this guy got to go before the police board saying he don't want to be suspended. And the police board going to decide his fate. I think it may have been about 10 officers involved in that. Some of them retired. Their lawyer, Mr. James P. McKay Jr., I say there with all due respect to Mrs. Koshman, the reason her son isn't here today is because he started something he couldn't finish. All the evidence, all the witnesses that end up coming out before they hired a special prosecutor. I think Nita Alvarez was the state's attorney then. Regarding the 5 Chicago Police Department rules that Cerrone is accused of violating, which involved his supervision of detectives on the case, the lawyer says the charges are nothing more than the fault of somebody at City Hall who's afraid to tell the media, screw you. The Sun-Times couldn't believe the blatant misconduct of the police department engaging in the cover-up of a crime blatantly out for everyone to see. From what I read in the story, they thought it was no tape of the incident. The police department couldn't find a tape. And if you go down there around Rush Street, they got cameras everywhere. They got cameras on top of cameras. They got a camera network that may be tied into the ATM as you go past. Everybody thinks the only time the ATM camera come on is when you stick your card in there. That's not true. Their camera network down there is tied into the various different stores, the various different condos in the area, the various bars and restaurants in the area. But when they hired Webb, up popped the camera and showed that the young man didn't start the fight. That his nephew stood over him like a towering giant. When Nancy Koshman, that's the mother of the young man, this is what she said, and this is what I'm reading. I don't care what David said or did. There was no justification for this guy to punch my son and then run away from the crime. After he did it, him and his other privileged friends and family members left the scene of the crime. When he ran away, he knew he shouldn't have done it. Cerrone, who followed his father into the police department 27 years ago, was among 6 officers singled out for their actions by Special Prosecutor Webb. So it was 6 instead of 10. Webb, a former U.S. attorney who is now serving as Special Prosecutor in the Jussie Smollett case. Though Webb didn't charge them with any crime, Webb said he considered filing obstruction of justice charges against them for making up a phony self-defense determination. This is why they want to get rid of Kim Foxx. So Donna Moore and all the other people that's running, and I'm personally against them. But I ain't hearing nothing from any of them that says they don't want to be a part of any effort that's being led by the fraternal order police that believe that Van Dyke, even though he shot that young man 16 times and been found guilty for murder, that he did any wrong. Any police officers that was involved in the cover-up of Van Dyke, they feel, and this is what one of the representatives said at the city council meeting, that those individuals that was fired by the board, police board, shouldn't have been fired. This guy statements, Locke Bowman, who was the attorney, a great civil rights attorney, he'd been fighting and helping individuals that's been wrongly convicted get free for a long time. One of the two lawyers who helped Nancy Kosterman win the appointment of the special prosecutor to reopen the case said the statements didn't surprise him. How these police officers feel, how this lawyer feel. These are the same individuals that's in leading a movement to get rid of Kim Foxx because she's saying the state's attorney's office would not be a part of anything like this. So I'm asking the Cook County voters to pay attention to this election and please re-elect Kim Foxx, Cook County State's Attorney. 2020, March 17th, 2020. A lot of people say that hindsight is 2020, and I agree. But we got to have foresight because we're going into the year 2020. So March 17th, please re-elect Kim Foxx, State's Attorney of Cook County. Keep integrity with the State's Attorney's office. Y'all say y'all want them to prosecute. I heard you say prosecute these officers. I'm just saying. Talking about Smollett. Smollett's attorneys have the audacity to say even if he faked the attack, he shouldn't pay the bill. I think he should pay the bill. This is it. Justice Smollett is smoking. The actor, once a star of the hit TV series Empire, is making one last attempt to get a city lawsuit against him tossed out of federal court before it proceeds to trial. It's an article by Michael Sneed, great columnist. Sneed learned exclusively that late Tuesday night, Smollett's attorneys filed a motion responding to the city's claim that he should pay the city more than $130,000 to cover police overtime and other costs. Attorneys for Smollett denied the actor made up the attack and note charges were ultimately dropped by Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx. Smollett, you need to pay them charges. And from what I've read, your attorneys are lying. Because Kim Foxx did not free you. It was someone in her administration that made the determination after you paid the fine that that you should be let go, like so many others, maybe 3,200 other individuals. The charge that he had was the same as if he poured an alarm in the school. Number 4, felony. Number 4, felony. That's putting alarms in the school. That's screaming fire in a show theater. That's faking like somebody grabbed you and put a rope around your neck and because you're gay and because you're black. I personally believe you need to pay that money. That might be why God blessed me not to be on the jury, because that's just what I say. Something else that's key and important is criminal history versus compassion. The county debate over the role of rap sheets and rental decisions. This young lady named Willette Benefort was released from prison earlier this year, but has been unable to find a place to live. She says, I'm currently employed and I would pay my rent. I would be a good tenant. I'm not a threat anymore. Wow. This is news that you can use. It's a county debate. They're talking about it in county government. They're talking about it in the beauty salons. They're talking about it in the barbershops of Cook County. They're talking about it around the country. Ms. Benford spent a little more than 23 years in prison, convicted of murdering a woman she was romantically involved with by running her over with a car. Wow. She was released from prison earlier this year, nearly 25 years early, under a new state law that allowed domestic violence to be considered a mitigating factor in sentencing. The only reason was to defend myself. This is what she said. The only reason she ran over the woman, she was defending herself. Domestic violence. Domestic violence is just as deadly as senseless shootings and killings because nobody pay attention to it. There's a lot of police officers that's involved in domestic violence cases with their spouses, and their spouses can't get no help support. They don't know if they're going to call the police, who may be a friend to their husband. Those are cases that's been in the record, that's been in the media. Since her release, Benford, 54, says she has found a job and began rebuilding her life, but she has been unable to find a place to live because of how landlords view her criminal record. The first time I tried to present an application, it was denied. They wouldn't accept it. They said it was because of my background, which is 25 years old. Benford said, apparently referring to the 1995 murder. I'm currently employed and I will pay my rent. I will be a good tenant. I'm not a threat anymore. Benford was one of about 30 people who spoke before the Cook County Board Committee this past Wednesday about about the new just housing ordinance that was passed by the Cook County Board. Landlords, housing experts, activists, ex-offenders all weighed in as the Rules and Administration Committee worked on establishing rules ahead of the December 31st implementation of the ordinance. It's interesting. Landlords, housing experts, and activists, and ex-offenders all weighed in as the Rules and Administration Committee worked on establishing rules ahead of the December 1st implementation of the ordinance. The ordinance, which passed the Cook County Board of Commissioners in April, is actually an amendment to the county's housing ordinance. It's an amendment. That's why you got to vote. That's why you got to come to these committee meetings on all levels of government. Be it the state, be it the county, be it City Hall. The county board meetings are televised. Now the city meetings are being televised. When you hear that your congressman or your United States senators are having committee meetings dealing with issues, get there. Because what you have to say can help them legislate and make sound ordinances to help us as a people in this country, county, state, or city. I know because I go to all the meetings that I can for my voice to be heard so the people's voice can be heard. Sometimes I'll be the only one that may be in there. There's not an elected official that's allowed to speak to an issue and to help make a change for everybody where everybody is included in the passing of the ordinance, including me. Go to these meetings. The ordinance, which passed the Cook County Board of Commissioners in April, is actually an amendment to the county's housing ordinance. The amendment adds language. If the landlords, the housing experts, activists, and ex-offenders were not at that committee meeting, the language wouldn't have been added to the ordinance. This woman has been out of the penitentiary for 34 years. She was freed because of domestic violence. Because someone went to a committee dealing with domestic violence. So the thing becomes that everyone has a right to be a part of creating the laws that affect us as a people. The amendment adds language prohibiting potential landlords or property owners from asking about, considering, or requiring the disclosure of covered criminal history, meaning arrest records, charges, juvenile records, conviction history, will be off limits to landlords until the potential tenant has been deemed qualified for the property. The debate focused on balancing the rehabilitation of and compassion for ex-offenders with the safety of all tenants. I agree with that. Public safety. They're concerned about the safety of the residents. Someone, Dan, I don't want to mess his name up, so I'm just going to deal with the first name. Dan from the Illinois Association of Realtors told the commissioners criminal record screening is an essential function which helps owners and operators mitigate risk and ensure the safety and security of the residents and communities they serve. The ordinance would also create a process for property owners who seek to deny housing to a tenant with a criminal history to give notice to the potential or current tenant. The proposed rules would limit housing providers from considering criminal convictions that's older than 5 years, since convictions that are 5 years or older do not represent a demonstrable risk to personal safety or property. The proposed rules would limit housing providers from considering criminal convictions that are older than 5 years, since convictions that are 5 years or older do not represent a demonstrable risk to personal safety or property. An applicant would also have the ability to dispute the accuracy or relevance of a conviction. Proposed rules in the ordinance give the applicant 5 days to notify the housing provider they intend to dispute the background check, and an additional 5 days to provide evidence. Then a housing provider must either approve or deny the applicant within 3 business days. The proposal before you today acknowledges the importance of screening, but it will still impose significant challenges for housing providers. So says Dan. We hope these rules will be written carefully so that the property owners are not limited in their ability to ensure a safe and secure environment for their residents. Nicole Oswald from the Chicago Apartment Association talked both about the financial burden the ordinance could put on smaller landlords as well as safety, saying we don't want to have to tell potential tenants that our look back period is less than the industry standard and that we can consider crimes like theft, fraud, and weapons possession when we screen our future neighbors. Johannes, an ex-offender, pointed out the hypocrisy of the landlord seeking to speak against the timeline for conviction disputes. We're talking about professional interest versus survival interest. Johannes says, if you got to wait 5 days for appeals or whatnot, you're inconvenienced. If you have to wait 7 years to find some housing, that's more than an inconvenience. At some point, you have to think about some compassion. Cook County Commissioner Larry Suffredin, a Democrat from Evanston, he's a good guy. I know him very well. When I was working with Cook County Commissioner Jerry Butler, he and Suffredin used to joke a lot, you know. Cook County Commissioner Jerry Butler brought me in, and I was a part of his staff. And me and Larry used to talk and joke all the time. He'd tell Jerry, you got Gator riding with you, do you allow him to sing? And Jerry say, no. Suffredin said the board would take all the comments and make a recommendation that will be voted on by the Rules Committee. The extension of the effective dates gives people more time to speak out, but our goal here is to make sure that the rules are complete, they are not misleading, the definitions are right, and the enforcement of this will be done in an effective manner. The goal here is not to be hammering people. The goal is to be finding housing for a group of people who have had difficulty finding housing, and to have the landlords have good tenants who could pay their rent. A guy by the name of Brent Adams argued there is more to tenants than an old rap sheet. As a person with a record and living with disabilities, Adams said he bounced back and forth between jail and the emergency room for a period of time. He found housing from a provider that did not know or did not care about his arrest, and has lived there ever since. Adams is a senior vice president of policy and communication with the Woodstock Institute, a non-profit research and policy organization, and self-described good tenant by all accounts. My personal story is important partly because it illustrates that a record by itself is insufficient information to perform an assessment as to what a crime means, if it means anything at all, relative to a person's future behavior. I'm going to say hooray, hooray to the Cook County Board of Commissioners. I hope they agree to this ordinance and that the president of the Cook County Board, Tony Pratt-Winkle, signed it into law, taking under consideration of everyone that showed up at the committee meeting. I'm going to say hooray, hooray to everyone that showed up and that voiced their opinion. Moving forward, the editorial in the Sun-Times has, they say and they state, the feuding. Lightfoot, Pratt-Winkle must stop feuding with each other. Work together on gun violence. And I agree, as I said last week on my show, I believe that both of them women are great women. They've been elected by the people in Cook County. They want President Tony Pratt-Winkle to remain president of the Cook County Board. They chose Lori Lightfoot to be the new mayor of the city of Chicago. And everyone agreed the election is over, and the both of them should come together to make things happen. One of the things I can say, and this is my personal opinion, when brothers come together, we come together to put money on a six-pack, to watch a football game and a basketball game. But when women come together to bring about change for the betterment of everyone, I'm not saying men can't come together. I'm just telling you, voicing my opinion. They come together and they help bring about something that make everyone come together to help make things work for the betterment of everyone. And lo and behold, today, when I read the Sun-Times, there was a story by Rachel Hinton, reporter for the Sun-Times, and the headline says, voicemail detente, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. That's in my opinion, that's like an olive branch that both of them can grab onto to get to the middle. Where there's no attack towards one another. There's an understanding that they both have opinions, but for the betterment of the county and the city of Chicago, as well as the state of Illinois, they come together and meet. From what I'm reading, Cook County Board President Tony Pratt-Winkle says she's taking the first step in ending a public feud with Mayor Lori Lightfoot, calling the mayor Thursday morning in the hopes of beginning a conversation about how the two can work together on gun violence. I'm going to say hooray, hooray, hooray. But the mayor didn't pick up, so she left a voicemail. As everyone knows, there's no single remedy to the complex challenges of ending violence, Preckwinkle said. I requested in my message that we have a private, face-to-face meeting. I agree that that is needed, is my opinion. I think those two women need to have their conversation. I believe if they have a one-on-one conversation, it won't be like no campaign. Just my opinion. I agree they can sit down and say, hey, for lack of a better phrase, hey girlfriend, let's sit down. Let's put this thing together. Let's put things behind us. Ain't nobody in the room or whatever. It's just them talking and getting it together. And it need to be private. It need to be private between them. Because the power of them coming together can help. You probably can't stop all the killing. Because violence is spontaneous. But it can help them bring about resources to help, for lack of a better phrase, neuter some of the problems like poverty, unemployment, bad education, bad this in the schools, creating jobs, everything else, to help bring about a stability within the community that will make the community stand up against those working along with law enforcement, working with business leaders, community leaders, church leaders, elected officials, and the community coming together to go at those individuals that think that they can create havoc in the community and come out in front of the community and make the community afraid to say, hey, that guy is creating terror within our community. These two women come together and agreed that, hey, we're going to disagree. That's the first thing. Agree that you're going to disagree. Agree that both opinions are going to be respected and tolerated. I know it works because I used to be an individual that would argue all day until my wife told me, baby, one way to get around arguments, even if you start off by saying, that's why on this show, I say this is an opinionated show. Everyone's opinion is going to be respected and honored and accepted. I have less arguments. I get more things done. They come together. They be guaranteed where they can work on things to help with one another's problems in the city of Chicago and Cook County. Get the resources that they need to get from the governor. Then the governor work with them and work with other counties to get what they need from Washington, D.C. And hopefully in 2020 it'll be a new president get things back right. We saw what we went through with the Republican governor. And now we got a new governor. Got a budget passed in 6 months. Helping pay business owners the money that they got coming from the state. A lot of companies got bankrupt because they couldn't get the money to pay the bills. So to both of these women, I want to say hooray, hooray, hooray. And when y'all talk and y'all meet, whatever agreement y'all come to take care of the business that's going to be for the betterment of Chicago and Cook County, and how y'all came to that agreement, it's just my opinion. Ain't none of my business. As long as you two women come together and do what y'all feel y'all got to do to make this thing work, because I know it can work. The mayor, Lightfoot, goes to Springfield with Chicago's future in the balance. She did this September the 1st. That's why it's so important for her and the President, Pratt Winkle, to come together. One of the things that Mayor Lightfoot said, let me find that. It was real key. They say Pratt Winkle didn't give Lightfoot a heads up that the letter was coming when the president wrote a letter and invited Pratt Winkle and Superintendent Johnson to come again to show that she had been reaching out before and everybody was mad because she put it in letter form. One thing that caught my attention in the story, and I'm glad, Mayor Lightfoot said this: "Let me be clear. I have said, Madam President, Chief Judge, Sheriff, State's Attorney, let's get together. Let's put our data out for the public to be able to see it, and let's work together towards a solution." And what I got back was not a, yeah, that's a great idea. I got back another nasty gram from her. She's talking about the letter. So other people who are part of this ecosystem have reached out and said, let's have a conversation. And I commend the Chief Judge and the Presiding Judge and the Sheriff, Tom Dart, and State's Attorney Kim Foxx, because I think all of us can make some progress, and we will make progress. So I want to say hooray, hooray to the both of them, because there's a lot of issues. The census count that's coming out, I'm going to have to wrap this up pretty shortly, is important. And for everyone, there's going to be jobs out there for census, people that want to help with the census to get people counted. They coming from the United States government to the county. United States government to the state governor, to the various counties across the state, to the various states across the state, especially to Cook County, to the city of Chicago. So there's going to be some jobs available. So that's why it's so important for these two women to come together. All On another note, Naperville says no to recreational marijuana. So you won't be able to smoke marijuana in Naperville unless you got a medical problem and you got something to show that your doctor say that you can smoke it. Okay? That's the power that the governor's legislative body gave, which is known as home rule. So the state says they for recreational cannabis, but it's up to the home rule to make the decision if they're gonna have a dispensary so an individual can smoke marijuana. I'm getting some old school. So if an individual can smoke some reefer. That's what I'm trying to say. Patty, not my sister Patty. I'm talking about Patty Blagojevich. Says she was shell-shocked. Wife of the imprisoned, shell-shocked because this guy, and Jesse Jr. ought to be shell-shocked too, because this guy that was a congressman, the former Republican congressman from Peoria, will walk away from a public corruption case with no conviction. A federal judge ruled Wednesday at a hearing lasting just a few minutes. This guy this congressman Spurlock officially off the hook for corruption charges. They locked Jesse Jr. up because they say he was spending misappropriation of spending money. This man did something way wilder than Jesse Jr. He did something way wilder than Blagojevich. Yet he's free. He was a Republican congressman. Google him. Last name is S-C-H-O-C-K. First name is Aaron, a former Republican congressman from Peoria. On Facebook and Twitter, the former First Lady of Illinois wrote, "Wire fraud, mail fraud, falsifying documents, theft of government money, tax evasion, no days in jail, all charges dropped, and a sweetheart deal with the feds." Wow. He didn't even get a pardon. Wow. They said Aaron struck a deal with prosecutors in March, putting his case on hold for 6 months, during which he was required to meet certain conditions and remain under court supervision. The probationary period ended Wednesday with the U.S. District Court Judge Matthew Connelly ordering the indictment dismissed. This isn't the first time Patty Blagojevich has expressed her outrage at others and their convictions and sentences in comparison to the punishment given her husband, former Governor Rod Blagojevich. In January, she tweeted that she was speechless. That Chicago police officer Jason Van Dyke was sentenced to only 81 months for killing Laquan McDonald. I'm just saying, I'm bringing you news that you can use. But as usual, I must really be having fun because time didn't get away. So let me say this. Stay prayerful, stay relevant, be about criminal justice reform, and by all means, March 17th, re-elect Kim Foxx, Cook County State's Attorney. Good evening, and to God be the glory.